On the 30th of January 2015, my dad passed away, and I have made this video to share my story with you. After he passed away, I went through a stage very, very early on after he passed away, looking for anyone that was going through a similar thing to me. So I would literally just spend hours on YouTube, on Google, looking at stories about people that had lost their parents or siblings or anyone that was my age that had lost anyone. And at the time, there really wasn't that much information. That was really why I wanted to make this video, and I have wanted to make this video for such a long time, but it's taken me 2 years to get to where I am now, where I feel like I can make this and I can talk about it openly. And if I can help anyone, even one person from watching this video, cope with their grief a little bit more, or just to say, I'm here for you, I kind of get what you're going through and you're not alone, then I will be really happy that I helped someone from this. So I'm gonna really try not to get upset in this video, but it's really difficult. My dad had coronary heart disease. He was my best friend. He was a really, really important, huge part of my life, and he still is now. He had his first heart attack when he was 28 years old, and my mum and him had only just started going out and they were dating and stuff like that, and he had a huge heart attack when they were together. And I remember my mum telling me about it. She still talks about it now. And they actually had the priest in to do the last rites when he was 28, because they really honestly thought he was gonna die. Like, there was no way he was coming out of that. It caused so much damage to his heart, and that heart attack was what made him so sick throughout the years of his life. The reason why he had the heart attack was because he had a undiagnosed underactive thyroid. So over the course of his life, he had 3 or 4 or 5 heart attacks, and he was really very, very sick, and anyone that knew him wouldn't even know how sick he was. Not that many people knew about his heart condition, and it was something that he really didn't want to let anyone know about, not because he was embarrassed about it or anything like that. It was literally because he was such a positive person, and he didn't want anyone to think that because of his heart condition that he couldn't be like anyone else, or he couldn't do as much work as anyone else, because he was literally the hardest working person I've ever met. So many people, even after he died, said to us, you know, we really didn't realise how sick he actually was. I think looking back after his death, I don't think I really truly realised how sick he was, because he was always so happy, so positive, so he was so carefree, and that, I think, is what really shocked me when I did find out that he was gonna die. So growing up, it was always something that I knew about. I mean, I was maybe 3 or 4 years old when he had a huge heart attack when he was in Norway. So basically, my dad used to travel all over the world for business. He was incredible in the fact that he just did everything and more than what a normal kind of healthy person would do. The first one I think I remember was when he was in Norway, and he had a huge heart attack, and I remember my mum telling me that he'd called my mum and he'd said, I'm having a heart attack, I'm having a massive heart attack, and I'm gonna crawl out into the hallway and get help. Can you please tell the kids that I love them and I love you so much. And I remember my mum getting me up in the middle of the night. I just remember, like, I think one of my aunts came and stayed with us or something, and my mum flew out to Norway, and he actually had 2 heart attacks when he was in Norway. And looking back on it now, it's just, he went through so much in his life. So it wasn't until I was around maybe 13 or 14 that I actually witnessed him have a heart attack. And I remember being in bed and my mum just screaming and shouting. She was on the phone to an ambulance, and I just remember going into his room and he was just on the floor. There were paramedics everywhere, and it was just such a horrible thing to see. I mean, my whole life he was in and out of hospital all the time. It was definitely a really, really tough thing growing up, seeing your dad really sick, but at the same time it was really, really inspiring just seeing his work ethic and how he just had like such a positive outlook on life. Throughout his life, when he was alive, he was on hundreds of different pills each day. I mean, I remember it was like a chemist in his room. He would mainly go away every week, so he'd be like traveling to Germany, Norway, Dubai. He lived in Dubai for a couple of years before he died. I just have this vivid memory of my mum on a Sunday night like helping him pack, and I just remember her sitting there like with a tray and just all these pills and just putting them into a weekly planner for him. And I've just never seen that many pills before, and I don't know, at the time I guess it just seemed really normal, and it was normal in our family. Of course the pills had such bad side effects with him. I mean, his hands used to shake to the extreme that like if he was holding a spoon or a fork, like he'd be eating his dinner with me sometimes and his hands would literally just shake as he was eating his food. And I just used to just like laugh with him about it. But you know, like he faced so many obstacles like throughout his life, and he just carried on with it. It wasn't long after he had the heart attack, when I was about 13 or 14, that his heart was getting worse in terms of his heart muscle was incredibly weak because of the damage that had been caused when he'd had the huge heart attack when he was 28. In the end, he only had 22% of his heart that was actually working in terms of heart muscle, that was pumping blood around the body and everything like that. And if you think about it, that is such a small amount comparing to, say, me or you if you're watching this and we have, you know, completely healthy hearts. And it does really take your toll on everything. I mean, there would be so many things that he wouldn't be able to do. And you know, like he would the last years of his life he was working in London and Dubai. He was like going back and forth, or not even Dubai, like the UAE in general really. And I remember like he'd get up for work to go into London at like 5 a.m. My mum would drop him at the station, and then he'd be home by about 5 at night. And most of the time he would eat and just go straight to bed because he would be exhausted. And this is really hard. And one of my favourite things to do would be, I would come home from working in London and I would get home at like 7 or 7:30 and I would run straight upstairs to his room, and like I used to sit next to him on the bed and he'd be in bed listening to the radio because he loved listening to Radio 4. And I'd like come and sit next to him in bed and I'd tell him about my day. Sorry guys, gotta get it together. And I'd tell him about my day and he'd tell me about his day, and we just used to like catch up because we didn't have that normal father-daughter relationship in terms of we wouldn't sit around and have dinner together in the evenings unless it was the weekend because he would be so exhausted. And I I just found those times with him just so special, and yeah, I just love them. When he was getting sicker, they decided to get rid of the pacemaker, and then they fitted a defibrillator with a pacemaker instead. That was kind of how it always was. It was for a good 6 years or so, like, it was very steady going in our family. Like, he was sick, he was tired, you know, he had a disabled pass, so obviously he couldn't walk very far. He used to struggle walking the dog in the usual park that he loved because it was too big. I guess we just didn't see his death coming because it was so steady going, and we just lived with it, and we just thought, well, you know, he's going to be fine. I just don't know why I ever thought that, but that was it. I remember it being Christmas 2014. My dad was really tired, and I mean really, really tired. And he had been in Dubai before Christmas. He came home for Christmas and we had an amazing Christmas. I just remember every second of it, and we always had such amazing Christmases. And my dad loved Christmas so much. And then after Christmas he went back to Dubai, and that was that. Like, you know, we spoke to him every day, we Skyped him, didn't hear of any kind of problems whatsoever coming from him. So I picked him up on the 15th of January, which obviously was his birthday, is his birthday. I just remember picking him up from the airport and he was so happy. Like, he had champagne on the flight, he just like had the best time. And I just remember picking him up and he was so, so happy. And we went home and I think we just like made dinner and we just like sang happy birthday to him, and he went to bed because the next morning he was going into Harefield for his checkup. So he was due to have an angiogram. So I dropped him off at the hospital. He was like so carefree about it. He was like, don't stay, I'm gonna be fine, you pick me up later and I'll call you, that's it. Again, I just didn't think there was anything there that was unusual. You know, he didn't look sick, and that's the thing that really got us. He just didn't look sick. I just remember him ringing my mum and saying, they're not gonna let me go home, there's something wrong, so I'm being kept in, not happy about it, da 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 da. And he used to have so many jokes with the nurses in there, like the doctors and the nurses, like whenever he was in there for any small procedures, he would have the whole ward laughing, literally, and the nurses just thought he was just the best thing ever. I just remember him saying, they're keeping me in, there's something wrong, they need to do tests, da da da. And we were like, what? Like, what's going on? You know, this is really strange, you know, it just didn't seem right. So basically throughout his life, we were always told that he was too sick to be operated on. They wouldn't risk opening him up or doing any big operations because of the damage to his heart. They kept him in and we didn't know what was going on, and then we found out that basically the third artery was completely blocked. They told us that he could die at any minute. There was no way he was being allowed out of the hospital, and that they needed to discuss what they were going to do to help him. Because he had heart failure, this was obviously not just going to be like a normal operation. So there was a lot of back and forth, and in the end they decided that they were going to do a bypass. So a bypass is used to replace damaged arteries in the heart, and they do open you up from the chest, which is where he was opened up. And even when they said to us that that was what they were going to be doing, we were so kind of like, okay, it's going to be fine, you know, it's going to be all right. And like even the surgeon was so confident, and the surgeons and the doctors were incredible. Like, I cannot even begin to say how incredible that every single person in that hospital was. I know that there were lots of conversations that they had with my dad when we went there. I don't know whether he knew really how serious it was or whether he was just trying to block it out. I mean, I would want to block it out if that was me. And I just remember the surgeon saying to my dad, you know, you do understand that this is a serious procedure, da 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 da. And my dad was like, yeah, like it's fine, you know, it's gonna be fine, you know, I feel all right, you know. My dad was just, he had such a positive energy about him, and he was just such a positive person throughout everything. And, you know, even inside, if he was completely terrified, you would never ever have known, because he just was like, we're gonna do this, like it's gonna be fine, and that was it. My dad went through so much in his life. He got through everything. We were just like, yeah, he's got through this, so he's gonna get through this, like, right? Like, you know, he's Superman. That's literally what we thought. We really did think that he would survive it and that he would come through it, because that's what he did. So on the morning of his operation, we went in to see him, and I just remember starting to get a bit of a cold. I remember that day I started to feel really sick, and when we were allowed to go in and see him in the pre-op theatre, I remember having my massive Zara blanket scarf on, and I remember covering up my mouth because I thought, I can't let him get sick. If I am starting to get sick, which I did feel like I was starting to get a little bit sick, I can't go near him, you know, like I can't like kiss him on the cheek or anything like that, or hold his hand, because I do not want to get him sick. And I just remember going in there and just sanitizing my hands and just like not breathing on him and just being a total maniac basically. And that's something that I am finding really, really, really hard to deal with now, because I just feel so much anger towards me being sick and, you know, not being able to hold his hand and anything like that. And yeah, so I just remember we spent about 40 minutes with him just talking about absolute rubbish. You know, this wasn't like a, you know, I love you, tell me everything about you that's important, or tell me what I should do with my life. You know, like those chats that you think you're gonna have when someone's about to die. Like, I did not say any of that. Like I said, like, we just really didn't think that this was gonna be a major thing. Obviously we knew it was a big operation, but, you know, that was it. So he went down to his operation, and we literally got to walk with him as they were wheeling him down, and we did get to the room, and that was it. Like, he had to go in, and I just remember saying to him, I love you so much, you know, you can do this. I said, you've got this, Dad, you can do it. And yeah, I just remember him just like doing like a thumbs up and saying, I love you all. And that was it. And the nurses told us afterwards that when they took him into the theatre, just before the anaesthetist put him under, he was laughing and joking with the nurses, and, you know, he didn't say anything that was kind of, you know, oh, I'm a bit scared, or, you know, if this if this turns bad, you know, he didn't say anything like that. He was literally just laughing and joking with the nurses. And he was in there for a long time, and I just remember we were like in the waiting room. We were in the waiting room at the hospital, and we were all just like getting really anxious. And I think the operation was supposed to be about 4 or 5 hours, and he was in there for like 6.5 hours. He came out, and the surgeon came and spoke to us, and by this time I had like full-blown flu. So I remember the surgeon went and spoke to my mum and said the operation was a success, it couldn't have gone any better, you know, he's in intensive care now, that's where he's going to be recovering, so we're just waiting now for him to kind of recover really and just get some strength, because he had such a weak heart muscle that was a huge operation for him, and he was out of the operation. You know, if anything, we thought he would die in theatre, and that's honest to God what we honestly thought. Over the next 4 days, he became incredibly sick. So over those 4 days, I didn't go and visit my dad, and that was because I was sick. My mum, my brother and my aunt were literally going back and forth to the hospital to visit him, and then they were updating me about what was going on. I just remember one morning my mum coming in and going, Marni, this is not good with Dad. You know, I just remember her saying to me that she was really scared, and I think that's when it really hit me how serious this was. I just remember them saying he was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and his organs weren't behaving, let's say, how they should have been. What they decided to do in the end was they decided that the heart was too weak to pump the blood around the rest of the body, which was taking its toll on his organs. So what they did was they actually put him on an ECMO machine. Now, an ECMO machine is very rare. I think there's only about 3 or 4 of them available in the UK, and he was very lucky that he managed to get that. What this does is it basically does the job of the heart, so it pumps the blood around the body, and they said, you know, hopefully what this should do is should take some pressure off of the heart and it will help him rest. I just remember them ringing my mum and saying that the ECMO machine wasn't connecting properly and that it wasn't working, so they had to reconnect it again, and there was just all these things going wrong. And then they rang again and said that his kidney had started failing, so they had to put him on a dialysis machine. And it all just started going desperately wrong for him at this point. I just remember on the 29th of January, I was at home, and that morning my mum had said to me, this is really serious, this is quite bad for him, you know, they're struggling, he's struggling to get better. He was on all these different drugs and they were trying all sorts of things to try and help bring him back and give him some strength and just try to give him as much support as he possibly could. I remember it being about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my mum texted me and she said, we're going to meet with the surgeons soon. I will text you or I'll call you when I've spoken to them. And I remember this day so clearly. And I just remember coming up to my room, and I just remember looking out of the window in my room and just seeing snowfall. Like, it just started snowing just randomly, and I just remember just looking out of the window, and I just knew, I knew something was wrong. And at that moment, I can't explain what I'm about to say, and I don't have any kind of explanation for it at all. I still to this day, I have no idea. But at that moment in time, I knew that my dad was gonna die. I knew it. I just had this, it's like when you have a bond so special with someone, I feel like you're just connected, like you know things. It's like a sixth sense almost, but you have that connection with that person. And I just remember looking outside and just thinking to myself, my dad's gonna die today. And I just remember just breaking down, just being a mess. I just was crying and crying, and I remember coming downstairs and saying to Billy, he's gonna die. I just know it, he's going to die. I just have this feeling. And I just knew, I just had that instinct that something was badly, really seriously wrong. It wasn't until about half an hour later that my phone rang, and it was my mum. And I just remember answering the phone and her just saying to me, like, Daddy's gonna die, like he's not coming home. And that was it. Like, that was it. And I just remember just literally just dropping my phone, just my whole entire world had just kind of come crashing down. And that night we got to say goodbye to him, we got to sit with him, and when I saw him, I knew that he wasn't there. I just knew that, like, he'd gone. You know, it was just machines that were keeping him alive, and he didn't look like him. I knew he wasn't there. So that evening we got to kind of spend loads of time just laying with him and just talking to him, and they decided that it was time to turn off his life support machines and everything else that was keeping his body alive. And what had happened in the end is he died of organ failure due to the heart failure, because his heart just couldn't keep pumping and couldn't keep supporting the organs. So in the end, everything just gave up. And I just remember the doctor saying that they had tried everything. And I just remember my brother saying, like, can't you save him? Why can't you save him? I'm really sorry, guys. And the surgeon said, we really want to save him, but we can't save everyone. I think after he died, the weeks after it were such a blur, and the funeral just felt like a complete and utter blur. And I remember I did make a speech at his funeral because that was something that I really wanted to do. I felt like I owed it to him to do that, and I don't know how I did it. I really don't know how I did it because I was just a mess. Like, I didn't wash for like the first week after he died. Like, I didn't want to get in the shower because when I had been in with him on the 29th, on the evening of the 29th, and he died on the 30th, that evening I was there kissing his cheek, I was there, you know, like holding his hand, and I just remember like stroking his head, and I just didn't want any of that to come off of me. I just remember I was like, I didn't want to wash. Like, I remember my mum having to be like, you need to shower now, like this is not on. And I just remember just looking like a complete slob. Like, I didn't eat for like the first 4 days, and I love my food. I just think the things that really helped me get through each day were my mum and my brother. They were literally like my rock. Billy, I mean, I can't put into words how much he saved me. Even now, he really did. Like, he saved me, and if I didn't have him, I don't know what I would have done. And it's the same with my mum and my brother as well. And even today, like, they're still my rocks. And you know, I'm 2 years on, like this is me 2 years on. I think the most important thing for anyone that's going through it, if you're watching this and you're going through a death of someone really close to you, is that it's really important to cry. You know, even if you're a guy, you're watching this, like, don't be ashamed to cry, because I feel so much better after I've cried, and it's such an important part of the grieving process. After he died, I remember like all my family would like sit around and like we'd try and watch like comedies. We'd watch like my dad's favourite films. Like, my dad used to love Only Fools and Horses. He used to love Father Ted. And after he died, it was only like a few days after he died, I just remember like me and my brother just like getting on the sofa together, and we would just like cry and watch Only Fools and Horses, and we just laugh. And you know, you can't feel guilty about laughing or crying, or you know, it's so important to do that. And even now, looking back, that really did help me a lot. So it is so important to just have a moment of laughter or of joy, and don't be ashamed to have that. Don't feel selfish to have that. It was about 3 months after that he died that I got to a point and I was like, I can't do this on my own. Although I had like my mum and my brother and Billy there, I needed something else. Like, I felt like I needed to talk to someone about it. I wanted to talk to someone that maybe had been through it as well. And I did start going to bereavement counselling, and for me, the lady that I saw, she really helped me. And bereavement counselling isn't for everyone, I get that, but for me it really helped. And she gave me coping mechanisms to get through my everyday life. And I just remember her saying to me that there was a story that my mum used to read to me when I was younger, and it's called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but basically, you know, grief is like the quote from Going on a Bear Hunt. And in this story, the bears have to find their way through the forest, and the bears say to the other bears, you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you have to go through it. And I remember her saying that to me, and it just felt so relevant to how I was feeling, that you can't just ignore it, you can't just shut it out, you need to just go through it, you need to process it, you know, you have to acknowledge it. One of my friends also lost her dad the same year as me in the September, and I didn't actually know her then, it was my mum that knew her mum. her dad died of a similar heart condition to my dad. I just remember having her as my rock, and she was kind of my rock as well. And we would talk about it together, and we would cry together, and we would, you know, just bitch about all these stupid things about grief and how crap it was and everything like that. It was actually my friend that said to me, I think we should do something for charity. Let's do something for the British Heart Foundation. Let's do a 10k run. And I just remember being like, oh my God, what? Like, this sounds like the worst thing ever. We signed up for it and we did the Vitality 10k run, and it goes throughout central London, and it's like such a lovely route. What really pushed me into doing that was the fact that I really do feel even now like I could do anything. Like, I feel like I've been to the lowest point that you could go to, and I know it sounds a bit strange, but you just feel unstoppable. You think, if I can go through this, I can do this, I can do anything. And that's really how we looked at it, and we trained for it, and it was such an incredible, sad, happy day with like such a mix of emotions. And we ended up raising £4,600 for the British Heart Foundation, which really felt honestly incredible. And anyone that's going through anything like this, I would urge you just to do something for charity, or just do something and that makes you feel proud of yourself, because that honestly really did help me, and I know it helped my friend as well. And we just felt unstoppable, and it was the most incredible day, and we were really slow at running. Like, we trained for months, but we were still rubbish. But we finished it, and we raised an incredible amount of money for them. And that's something that I'm so proud of myself for, and I know that my dad would also be like really, really happy to know that I was trying to do something positive. So, like I said before, I'm 2 years on. Obviously, this still affects me on a daily basis, but not so that I've allowed it to define me. And I really, truly believe that my dad is with me, and that he's watching me, and that he's looking down on me, and that he's there on my shoulder. He's like my guardian angel. And I get days where I just want to kind of like hide under the covers and just think, I can't do this today, I'm not doing it today, like I hate everyone and I'm not doing it. But I just think, okay, I'm gonna do this, I've got to do this, and that's it. You just get on with it and you do it. I don't know what it is, but I just get this kind of strength from somewhere inside me, and you just try and carry on. But it is okay to have bad days. Like, I still do have bad days occasionally where I just cry and cry and cry. But then I kind of pick myself up, and I think I try and be as positive as I can. And looking back, like, I was having a conversation with one of my really good friends the other day. I was telling her about how I was in 2015, the stuff that I used to do. I mean, like, I would get in my car and I would scream and cry, and I would literally scream to the top of my lungs because I felt so upset, and I just couldn't scream in my house because, one, the neighbours would probably think someone was being killed, and two, like, it's just not nice for your family and your loved ones that are also going through it to hear that. So I just felt like I needed to remove myself from the situation, and I did do that for like the first couple of months. I'd just get in the car and I'd drive to like his favourite park, and I'd just sit in the car and just cry. I remember last year, it was like 4 weeks before Father's Day, and there's like a really well-known British company in there. They sell gifts online and they sell like cards, and I just remember it was about 4 weeks leading up to Father's Day, and I was getting, and I'm not joking, I was getting like 4 emails a week saying like, Father's Day, order gifts online for dad, personalise your Father's Day card. I just remember getting like 4 emails a week from this company, and every time I opened an email, my heart would just rip in two. That's how it felt like. I felt like I was being victimised. I was like, why are they emailing me? Like, everyone should know that my dad's died. You know, like, that's how you feel. You just feel like everyone should know, and, you know, no one should be happy, because that's honestly how I felt at the time. So it got to like the week before Father's Day, and I was like, I've had enough. I'm not doing this anymore. And I remember just tweeting them something like, you are so inconsiderate emailing me, Father's Day emails, my dad's just died, how dare you? And I just remember some poor woman from the company just emailing me back, like, I don't know what she was called, let's say her name's Sally, like poor Sally emailing me back and being like, I'm so sorry for your loss, you can unsubscribe from Father's Day emails in your settings on your account. And I just remember just reading it and going, oh my God, what am I doing? I can look back on that now and laugh about it because it's funny. You know, I was like in a rage. I was raging. Like I was like out to get this company. I was like, how dare you do this? But that's just how you feel at the time. So that is my story about my dad. And you know, I really like to talk about my dad on it as much as I possibly can. So he was only 58 when he died, literally just turned 58. But I learned so much from him throughout my life. And I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to let this define me, and that I was going to be positive and happy, and I was going to live my life. I'm going to travel more. I'm going to do the things. I'm going to do the things that I want to do and that I know that he would want me to do, and I'm going to live my life almost through him and for him. And if you're watching this and you're going through the same thing, do what makes you happy. If you want to go on that trip, take the trip. Life is short, and so important that you really value what is important to you and what is special to you. And that is honestly what I took from my dad, and he inspires me so much every day to remain positive and happy and hardworking, because that's how he was. And everyone loved him so much, and I want to be remembered as my father's daughter. And I just hope that I can have an incredible impact on people the way he did. So thank you so much for watching if you got this far, and I really hope this helped for anyone that's going through something similar.